If you've struggled being skinny and want to gain weight while staying lean, then we're gonna talk about that today. The key is eating in caloric surplus and making sure that we're prioritizing muscle growth. So that's really gonna help you stay lean as well as build, a really good body as well. So this is gonna be 7 steps, step-by-step guide that I'm going to walk you through in this video. So make sure you save this one. Backstory, back in the day when I started working out in 2017, my main goal was to make sure that, I wanted to gain weight because I was skinny most of my life. So my main goal was just to eat in caloric surplus, but I didn't know how to do it, how to calculate it. So in this video, I'm literally, if you're in that stage, I'm gonna explain everything that this entails. So let's get right into it. Step number 1 is going to be making sure that we are calculating your daily caloric needs or your daily caloric intake. So this is so that we find out what that is for you. To gain weight without excess body fat, you need to eat slightly higher into your caloric surplus. So that just means making sure that we're eating a little bit higher than what our body needs on a daily basis. So this is where number 1, we're going to use an actual calculator that's going to calculate that, and that calculator is called TDEE, which stands for Total Daily Energy Expenditure, TDEE. So I'm gonna put that in the screen here somehow, or when I'm gonna screen record that as well, and I'm gonna put the actual calculator in the link below as well. So this is gonna be using, just to find out what we need in terms of your daily intake. So we're gonna put in here, we're gonna input our gender, our age, our weight, height, activity level. You don't need to put the body fat percentage here. You can just hit calculate after that. So you're gonna see 3 different metrics. The first one is gonna be your maintenance, and then you're gonna see cut. So that means if you're trying to lose body fat or you're trying to lose weight in general. And then the last one is gonna be bulk, or it's gonna be, you're just trying to gain healthy weight. So we're gonna go to the bulk section now, and then that's gonna be your daily intake. So for example, and then step number 2 in this action, we're gonna add so when you see the bulk section, it's gonna add about 2 to 500 into your daily intake. So just to kind of make this a little bit more understandable, we're gonna add, so go to your maintenance, the maintenance one, we're gonna add 200 to 500 into your maintenance on a daily basis. So that just means we're gonna create a small surplus, which means we're just gonna slightly eat a little bit higher than you need to intake on a daily basis. So this is gonna prevent, a body fat percentage to be higher, and then also this is gonna help you grow lean muscle mass, which really is what we need to get into there. For example, if your maintenance is gonna be 2,000 calories per day, we're gonna add, for the first 30 days, we're gonna add about 200 to 2,500. So about 2,200 to 2,500 per day. And then we're gonna stay in there for about, a month or so. So I would say about 3 to 4 weeks. And then we can add another additional 200 to 250. So for example, we're gonna go about a month later to 2,500 or around that roughly. And so that's gonna be your step number 1. And then next we're gonna talk about prioritizing lean protein. So let's get into that next. So step number 2, of course, is gonna be making sure that we are prioritizing protein, specifically lean protein in this section, because we wanna build lean muscle mass, right? So the first one is gonna be, of course, making sure that we are eating at least 0.8 to 1 gram. It's a lot easier to just eat into 1 gram of protein per 1 pound of body weight. So for example, if you are 120 pounds, we're gonna aim for 120 grams of protein per day. And it's a lot easier to actually put that into increments, especially if you're eating in smaller increments throughout the day. So for example, we're gonna get into that next in the next steps coming in, so keep that in mind as well. So that's gonna be number 1. And then of course the protein sources that you need to get these proteins from is gonna be, of course, making sure that we have some chicken, fish, egg, Greek yogurt, of course tofu if you don't eat meat in general. And when I say meat, I don't mean pork. Pork is excluded in any list that I talk about. I don't eat pork, I'm Muslim, so somebody kind of mentioned that to me as well. Lentil, and then also making sure that we are adding maybe protein shakes if we are not getting into our daily intake when it comes to the 1 gram per pound of body weight. That's a little bit of a tongue twister, right? And then so lastly, why is protein important? Protein is important especially in this phase when you are getting into a surplus, because we want to help your body build muscle, and then also make sure that you are building, or those the additional calories are going to go into your muscles rather than storing as a body fat. So that's the main important thing, especially when it comes to the protein intake. So that's why that is important. So step number 3, let's get into that. So step number 3 is going to be, of course, balancing your macronutrients for clean lean mass, right? Lean muscle mass, that is. So in this step, we're going to go into breaking down the macros. So what are the macros? So your macros are proteins, carbs, and fats. So those are what macros basically stand for or break down. And then so in this section, we're going to make sure we are aiming for, of course, 1 pound of protein per 1 pound of body weight. So when it comes to the percentage here, or 1 gram of protein per 1 pound of body weight, I kind of misspoke there. So the main important things here is when it comes to the macronutrients breakdown, the protein is gonna probably in this section is gonna be about 40 to 50% of your diet is gonna be your proteins. About 25 to 30% would be about roughly there, your carbs, and then maybe 15 to 20% is of course gonna be your fats as well. Fats are very important. A lot of people when they get into bodybuilding and they want to eat just chicken and rice, is they forget about the fat parts as well, because when you add fats, especially healthy fats, to your diet, that's gonna make sure it's gonna protect your hormones, so your hormone levels are not off the chain, and so that is also important. So we're gonna add about 15 to 20% in there as well. So this is what this looks like, right? For example, if you are 120 pounds, like we said before, we're gonna aim for 120 grams of protein. And then examples for carbs is gonna be probably rice, of course, oats, fruits, and potatoes. And then examples for healthy fat is gonna be avocados, nuts, and olive oil. And then if we go back to protein, of course, examples for that is gonna be chicken, eggs, protein shakes. Those are gonna be great sources of proteins as well. And then also when it comes to next part, we're gonna talk about increasing your caloric count and caloric intake as well. So let's get into that. So step number 4 is gonna be increase your caloric intake gradually, but we're gonna also make sure that we are avoiding accumulating body fat percentage. So here we're gonna start gradually, of course, slowly but gradually. So we're gonna start with 200 calories in addition to our maintenance. So that's gonna be your surplus, and then also we're gonna make sure that we are tracking. At the beginning, when you're starting your surplus, you can go ahead and weigh yourself and have that number there. If you're not a fan of a scale like I am, you can go ahead and track yourself via progress picture. Even if you're weighing yourself at the beginning, you can still take progress picture. When it comes to weighing yourself, don't weigh yourself every single day. Do it every 4 weeks, because that's how we're gonna make sure that we're tracking. But when it comes to you taking your progress pictures, we're gonna make sure that we're doing every single week. Personally, I like to take my progress picture every Friday. It's gonna show a lot more detail than if you just weigh yourself on a on the scale, of course. And so this is where we are going to make sure that we are tracking for the additional caloric surplus for at least 3 to 4 weeks. So the additional 200 caloric surplus to your maintenance is gonna keep going for at least 4 weeks up until we see changes. So what happens if you're not really seeing any changes at all? So here is where we need to tweak things. So ideally you should see about 0.5 to 1 pound of body weight per week on a weekly basis. If you're not seeing that, then this is when you can add additional 100 calories into your surplus. So this is gonna be 300 surplus right now. So the 200 that we had before, and then additional 100 that we just added. So do that and then track another 3 to 4 weeks and then see how that's going. If you're gaining too fast, if you're gaining too fast, this is when we need to slightly take a step back. Then this is when we need to make sure that we're preventing body fat accumulation, and this is where we need to add maybe make sure that we're making sure that we are eating in a way that's a little bit more cleaner. We're just focusing on the protein intake. We're making sure that if there's some fluff in your diet, we're kind of cutting that off, or not cutting it off completely, but we're changing it slowly so that way you're not accumulating body fat percentage. So next we're gonna get into step number 5. Alright, so step number 5 is gonna be, of course, making sure that we are focusing on strength training, and then also cardio is not gonna be a lot of focus, especially on this section, because we're trying to gain muscle mass, especially lean muscle mass. And in order for us to gain that, we're gonna protect our muscles, right? So we're gonna focus on weightlifting at least 3 to 4 times a week, maybe even up to 5 times a week. And then we're gonna also make sure that in this section we are focusing on the compound movements. So those are squats, deadlifts, bench press, overhead press, rows, even hip thrusts, right? And we're gonna make sure that we are focusing on that because those are gonna be the, you know, actual exercises that are gonna give you the biggest bang for your buck. Also, they're gonna accumulate the most muscle mass because they're gonna be working on multiple muscles at the same time, right? Next is gonna be limiting your cardio session. So if you're doing too much cardio right now, cut that off. Maybe you can do 1 or 2 sessions post-workout, maybe 10 to 15 minutes, no more than that. Rather, track your steps. It's better to track your steps, which is gonna be your cardio activities. So make sure that you're doing that. If you have an Apple Watch, you can track that. I have a Whoop, so if you guys want to get my watch, also I put the link below. I don't really get any affiliation from that, but you can go ahead and get maybe some percentage there as well. So making sure that you're tracking your steps is crucial because we're gonna make sure we are not accumulating body fat. So when you're moving and you're having that movement on your daily basis, that's gonna help us burn additional calories without preventing lean muscle mass, if that makes sense. All right. And the last one is going to be making sure that we are tracking our gains. This is really, really important. How do you track your gains? You're going to track your lifts. So you're going to see how much, stronger you're getting. More stronger you get is more, you're going to build more muscles as well. So let's focus on the strength here. And then, making sure that we're building lean muscle mass. So let's get into the next step. Before we get into the next step, make sure that you apply for the 101 coaching with me. That's where I train you. That's where I give you meal plans. That's where I give you actual training plans. We have 20% off for the month of April to celebrate my birthday. It's my birthday month, of course, so I wanted to give you guys extend that 20% off throughout the whole entire month. So go ahead and apply. Link should be in the description. So step number 6, of course, is going to be meal timing and smart snacking. So this is where we're going to make sure everything that we put in our mouth has some sort of protein. So we're going to prioritize protein first. So every single meal that you're eating, we're going to make sure at least we have 30 to 33% of the meal to be protein, and then we're gonna eat our proteins first. So here we're gonna eat at least 3 to, I would say, even 4 to 6 meals per day, and that's gonna help you digest your food easily and make sure that you're eating enough protein as well and you're fueling your body. And so when you have your meals into smaller increments, that's really gonna be a lot better than if you ate it, I don't know, if you're gonna be able to eat a whole entire maybe 8 ounces steak or something like that. So we're gonna make sure we're eating smarter, not harder, right? At the end of the day, we're gonna stay consistent with our meals as well. And then the next one is going to be, we're going to have snacks that are going to provide, something that is important to us as well, like proteins and things like that. So we're going to focus on Greek yogurt, smoothies, peanut butters, cheese, maybe cottage cheese or something like that. You can even make like a cottage cheese snacks, and then protein bars would be another one. But I would even say make sure that you're getting most of your proteins from actual natural foods, such as your meats and things like that. And then if you need just a little bit of additional protein into your daily basis, then that's where your protein shake comes in. And then lastly is going to be pre and post workout meals. Those are extremely important. So make sure you have some sort of protein before you go work out and then after you work out as well. So what I used to do back in the day is I used to always have my protein shake and my creatine in my car. So as soon as I'm done with my workout, I would have my shake right away with my creatine. So you can do that as well. So let's get into the next step. And of course, step number 7 is tracking your progress, and of course fine-tuning that as much as needed. So if you need to adjust something, this is when you need to do it. And also we're gonna make sure that we remember here, we're gonna weigh ourselves maybe once a month. If you're not a big fan of weighing yourself, you can totally skip this. I personally am not a big fan of this scale. At the end of the day, your body might fluctuate as well. Also remember, more muscle mass that you accumulate, it's gonna equal to you probably are going to be heavier on the scale, because muscle mass is a lot heavier than fat. So remember that also. And then the next one is going to be, of course, making sure that we are taking progress pictures every single week. So once a week, every single week, maybe pick a day. Mine is Friday. If you want to steal that, go for it. And making sure that you're taking pictures as well that way. Also, the next one is going to be, we're going to measure our strength, because when you build strength, you're definitely getting leaner because your metabolism boosts, and there's so many other benefits as well in addition to that. So that means when you're lifting heavier, when your weight, like the weights on the bar go heavier as well, then you can track that, and we can make sure that we are making sure that we're focusing on that as well in addition to that. And then lastly, we will adjust our caloric intake as much as needed. So if you're not gaining enough, this is when we need to add a little bit more. If you're gaining too fast, this is when we need to lean back a little bit and then take a little bit away from it, or just make sure that we're focusing on protein intake in this section as well. So let's get into last key takeaways, and then we're gonna close this section. So final key takeaways, right? So final key takeaways are going to be, of course, number one, making sure that we start small when it comes to our surplus. So we're going to aim for total of 500 calories of our surplus, but we're going to start maybe from 200 at the beginning first month, and then we're going to add maybe another 100 or 200 the second month, and then month 3 we're going to get to that final total of 500 increase for the when it comes to your caloric surplus. Next, we're going to make sure we're prioritizing building muscle. At the end of the day, when we build muscle, this is when we also reduce our body fat percentage. And then next, we're going to make sure we are strength training 3 to 5 times a week. This is priority number 1 as well. And then also lastly, we're going to make sure that we are tracking our progress based off of pictures as well as our lips. And then lastly, make sure that you guys apply for the one-on-one coaching if you need to, fine-tune your workouts and everything else. And for my birthday month, we are going to have that 20% off for you as well. In the meantime, also make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, comment what you've learned, or if you have any other questions for me as well, I can make topics like this for you as well. Next week we're gonna answer another question, which is how do you increase your appetite if you're not if you're not able to eat 4 to 6 meals a day. How do you increase that? And then if you're struggling with it, I'm gonna give you some tips on that as well. So until next time, make sure you wake up, take action, repeat.